All right, good evening and welcome to the St. Paul City Council Ward 5 Candidate Forum. My name is Linda McClune. I'm a member of the Roseville Area League of Women Voters and a resident of Roseville. I'm a moderator for this evening's Meet the Candidates Forum. Today's forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of St. Paul, the North End Neighborhood Organization, Payne, Phalen Community Council, District 10, Como Community Council, and the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers. I'd like to welcome you all tonight, the candidates, those who have joined us in the live audience, and those who will see this in the future on your St. Paul Neighborhood Network, where it will be rebroadcast. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization for both women and men, organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage informed and active participation in government. This forum is part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. This allows you an opportunity to hear candidates face-to-face, discuss issues that are important to you. There is never enough time in this kind of forum to ask every question that we might have up here. And so I encourage you, if your question does not get covered, that you contact the candidates directly. We hope that over the mic is very loud, sorry. We hope that over the course of this program, you'll learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do if elected to serve on the St. Paul City Council. I would like to just state that the views in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the sponsors. And sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement for any candidate. And all the candidates who are running for Ward 5 City Council are here tonight, I believe. So we will use questions that are written by the audience at today's forum, and they're on index cards that you can just kind of wave them around and somebody will come and pick them up. I will only use questions that are addressed to all candidates, and so therefore no questions to just one candidate. I would not allow personal or attacking questions, and all of these questions at the end of the forum become the property of the League of Women Voters. I take them home and put them down in my basement in a box. So I would also remind you that answers need to focus on the question themselves, and you can talk about a candidate's record if any of you have served for public office, but personal attacks will not be tolerated. So again, we ask that the audience all hold applause until the end of the forum. So I'd like to introduce you to the Ward 5 candidates for this evening. We have Bob Blake, Amy Brenmoen, Jamie Hendricks, and Suyapa Miranda. The agenda tonight will be as follows. All the candidates will have 2 minutes to give opening statements, and we have a timekeeper sitting in the first row who will, when you have 30 seconds left, hold up that fabulous yellow card, and when you are all done, when your 2 minutes are up, then the red card will go up, and you can obviously finish your sentence, but we ask you not to continue. I will stop you. We will then ask questions with 1 minute per response, and I will rotate the starting order, so we'll start the opening statements with Bob Blake, but then the next one we'll rotate, and partway through I'll switch the order around just to make sure we get a little mix up in terms of order. If I leave anybody out by accident, please just wave at me or throw something soft. So at the end of the questions, we will have 2 minutes for closing statements, and we will go in reverse order of the opening statements for those. So I think we're now ready to begin with our opening statements if our candidates are ready. And so we'll start with the opening statement from Bob Blake.
Bonjour, Anine. My name is Bob Blake. I just spoke to you in my tribal language. I'm a citizen, full-blooded citizen of the Red Lake Nation. I grew up here in St. Paul basically my entire life. I attended St. Bernard's right down the street here, grade school, junior high. Graduated from the St. Paul Public High School Central. I got my graduate and undergraduate degree here at Metro State here in St. Paul, and I have just enjoyed growing up here in between Ward 5 and Ward 6. Playing sports my entire life. I love this community. I'm proud and happy to say that I've lived here in the Twin Cities my entire life, especially here in St. Paul. And I'm super passionate and excited about this. I'm also a small business owner. I own a company called Solar Bear. We install solar panels. Basically, we do commercial jobs, residential, and so I'm very passionate about small business. Also, I do a lot of workforce development work. I also help with create a program with the Department of Corrections where we go ahead and we train inmates on solar installation. So the idea is to go ahead and fight climate change with mass incarceration, fight mass incarceration with climate change. So what we want to do is essentially take one public dollar, turn it into $4, at $5 like we used to in the old days. So these are some of the things that I'd like to bring to the city of St. Paul. I'm passionate about the environment. I believe that we are more connected to this environment than we know we are, and I believe that also that the answers that we are seeking to our problems are also in the environment, that we can go ahead and reconnect, and we can go ahead and solve a lot of our problems. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you. Miigwech, chi miigwech.
Thank you. The next Ward 5 candidate is Amy Brenmoen.
Good evening, everyone. All right, on now? All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Amy Brenmoen, and I am humbled and proud to serve Ward 5 on the St. Paul City Council. When I ran in 2015, I was the only woman on the St. Paul City Council, and today I am council president, and I am serving with the first female majority in the entire history of St. Paul, which I think is pretty cool. I love St. Paul. I know you do too, or you wouldn't have braved it out here tonight in this weather to be here. I believe we are heading in the right direction, and I am very bullish on our city. We are in a period of great growth and great prosperity, and we're also tackling huge issues head on. The state demographer came to talk to the city council last week and said that our population is at an all-time high. And I'm not surprised at all to hear that because people want to live here. It's a great city. We have wonderful amenities, wonderful parks, wonderful neighborhoods, wonderful people. The state-of-the-art facilities like Allianz Field and CHS Ballpark. Businesses are doing well. Downtown is fun and lively, which is different than when I was a kid. And unemployment is down. Housing values are up. That's great stuff. But we also have challenges, and I would say that the top of the list are public safety and housing insecurity. And these are issues that the city is tackling in a very holistic way and trying to really make a difference in those two important issues. As well as, some of our more wealthy neighborhoods have experienced the economic upturn in ways that areas of concentrated poverty and many people of color have not experienced. And we're looking at that in also a holistic way and trying to make intentional paths for prosperity and wealth building for people, as well as challenging our systems and trying to make a difference in what drove us here in the first place. I think in order for our city to be its best, we all have to do well. And by all of us, I mean people who've lived here their whole lives and people who've only been here for a couple of weeks. It's important that we all have a place to call home, that we feel safe, and that we can find a good paying job. So I look forward to representing this community in the coming years so we may thrive and prosper together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next Ward 5 candidate is Jamie Hendricks.
Hi, my name is Jamie Hendricks. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the other partners putting on this forum tonight. I have lived, I moved here to the Twin Cities when I was 18 and I'm 53 now, and so that means I've been here for 35 years. I've spent the last 22 years here in the north end of St. Paul, where I raised 2 children as a single mother. We had plenty of struggles throughout that time, as we did when I was a child also. Living through poverty situations is tough, but we have made it. I'm really very passionate about my neighborhood and the things that are happening in my neighborhood. I have worked in healthcare, human services, and education most of my adult life. And so I see things from a lot of different perspectives. But the one thing that I can say is that with all of those jobs. The thing that I found the most in common is that everybody has basic needs. And right now, not everybody's basic needs are being met. We need to be able to come together as a community and be able to work on some of these issues. I believe that you must be transparent in your position and also be someone that's willing to work directly with the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And our fourth candidate for Ward 5 City Council member is Suyapa Miranda.
Hi, I'm Suyapa. Oh, that sounds better. That's great. And I guess the first things that I want to talk about is just, so I do live in the North End, and I live right next door actually to Como. I've lived there for the last 10 years. I moved over there from Frogtown area, and I used to live in Minneapolis as well, too. And in the reasonings why I chose where I chose was because of our amenities. It was right next to a bus stop. My mom is a person who walks everywhere. She doesn't have access to a vehicle, so she has to rely on transportation, and public transportation at that. And one of the other pieces is that it was right by a school. And I thought, this is perfect. I said, I'm a parent that will consistently always be late for my kid. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the world works. And I was like, this is great. They'll be able to get to school. It'll be a wonderful space. And in that area, I've also been an executive director of St. Anthony Park Community Council within my career for 4 years. And in that space, I was able to build ADA compliancy, food access programs, and really work on health equity and also the whole equity of our organization at that time. And thinking about the disparities and doing GIS was the geographic information systems, and really starting to see the high levels of concentration of poverty that there was in that district. And started to actually create a plan around that and to be able to execute that plan too. And I think for the vision of Ward 5, especially in that spaces of the North End too, is about bringing in that economical wealth is something that's critical. And it's something that I would definitely want to be able to bring into this position too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So we're now ready to do questions, and I was told you have 1 minute for questions. We'll see how that goes. 1 minute's kind of short. And I assume that's so we can go through lots of questions, but it means you have to be succinct because 1 minute is not much time. So with this, we're going to start with question 1 with Amy Brenmoen and cycle around. And so the first question is about streets.
This is hot. I don't know.
Specific steps will you support to fix our streets, and how will you find the money to do so? All right, I will repeat that since, of course, there was a lot of microphone noise. What specific steps will you support to fix our streets, and how will you find the money to do so?
Great, thanks for the question. So, the question is about city streets and what would we do to fund them. The City Council requested that Public Works did an analysis of the condition of the St. Paul city streets, basically to just take a look at the maintenance cycle and see where we were at and what we would need to do to get on a better maintenance routine. The results were stunning, very disappointing, and really the results of many years, decades of deferred maintenance. It looks like it would take about $24 million a year to catch up with a regular maintenance routine. And right now, we're looking at doing a half-cent sales tax referendum at the state legislature to help us pay for road reconstruction and maintenance and infrastructure.
Thank you. So next, same question. How will you, what specific steps do you support to fix our streets, and how will you pay for them? And so for this, we'll go to Jamie Hendricks.
As a lot of you know, in traveling our streets here in St. Paul, a lot of our roads are in deep, deep disrepair. This is a big concern, not just for those of us who travel as far as residents, but also for our emergency responders that have to be able to move within the city. What we need to do is we need to dig into the budget. We need to take a look at where all of our money is going. We need to figure out where things are happening and be able to look at putting more money into our streets.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda, again, what specific steps do you support to fix the streets, and how will you find the money?
like to see more innovation when it comes to our grades in our streets. It's absolutely ridiculous that it seems to fall apart every single year. And I'm like, what grade are we using that it's falling apart every single year that way? Are we not spending enough money and time and effort to making sure that we're putting the right grades on those streets so we're not consistently spending money on this every single year?
Thank you. And Bob Blake.
Yeah, with the climate crisis upon us, what's going to happen, people, is that our winters are going to get a lot colder, our summers are going to get a lot hotter. And so what's going to happen, that's going to affect our roads, that's going to affect our streets. This is not just a St. Paul problem, this is a state, this is a world problem. And what I would do is I would like to go ahead and see how we can go ahead and we could tax the corporations, or we could put a gas tax at the pumps. We can tax the individuals that are actually doing the damage to our streets. So that would be one of the first things I would like to look at. Also, too, I would say let's look at the budget then, okay? Let's see where we can go ahead and make changes. Let's see where we can go ahead and make advancements. And let's go ahead and see where we can go ahead and find common ground. Because the last thing I want to do is put a heavy tax burden on all the St. Paul residents. That's the last thing I want to do. But this is about the climate crisis, people, and this is only going to get worse as we go forward. So we have to address it. And this is also is going to be, and the other part of this is just our infrastructure, our water pipes, and also to our utility lines.
Thank you. So the next question will start with Jamie Hendricks. What are your thoughts on implementing a composting program like Minneapolis has, where the compost is actually picked up, as similar to trash?
That would be a great thing for us to be able to have. I think more people would be more interested in composting had they known that we would have that available. Right now, Ramsey County does have where people can pick up and get compost bins. And I think that what we need to do also, though, is to be able to bring more education to the people of St. Paul about composting and being able to use those systems. I am ready for that. I think that's something that we need to do, and I think that we need to be able to use that in a productive manner.
Thank you. Siapa Miranda, what are your thoughts on implementing a composting program?
Absolutely. Ooh, absolutely. I mean, this is something that's been done for years in other cities. Why shouldn't it be here? I think my only piece is that I also want to see initiatives in our taxes when we start recycling and doing more promotion, just like Jamie just kind of talked about, with our small businesses and around our metro transit spaces for us to be able to recycle and throw away our trash too.
Thank you. Bob Blake?
Absolutely. We've got, there just came out recently that scientists are currently saying that we've got 60 years of topsoil left to be able to go out and grow food. So, I mean, when we look at that, people, that means that all of us are going to have to pull together right here in our city and start doing our part and start pushing our end. Composting is just the beginning. What we also need to do is we also need to create community gardens in our neighborhoods where we're going to grow community, we're going to grow food together, and we're also going to be able to grow our relationships with one another. This is working in other cities, and it's working. This is how we fight crime. This is how we bring people together, and this is how also that we are going to get to where we obviously want to go as a city, a more healthy city. So absolutely, composting is just the beginning. But I think on top of that, though, we create an Energy Vision Advisory Committee where we can go ahead and we can see the future for what the city of St. Paul should look like, and that is all agricultural.
Thank you. And Amy Bren-Moen.
Thank you. So I am a composter. I love the drop-off program that we have right now, and I'm really looking forward to curbside pickup. I just wanted to share that I dropped off my compost yesterday, and there was not one but 4 raccoons sitting in the compost bin. That scared me. And so I think it would be, I really look forward to a time when we don't have to have that much compost all massed together. I would add to that that the proposed curbside composting pickup is in front of us for 2021, and that is something that will be delayed if we do not keep our organized trash system in place. That is an important part of having the organized system. And I would also agree with what Mr. Blake said about there's more than just composting. I think community gardening and creating compost and backyard composting are also part of the picture.
Thank you. So for this next question, we'll start with Suyapa Miranda. St. Paul. St. Paul has huge opportunities to redevelop the Hillcrest Golf Course, the Boys Totem Town, and the former West Publishing site. What is your approach to make sure the city uses these opportunities wisely?
I think that I look at especially looking at our ward and looking where our money has gone, it hasn't gone to Ward 5. And I think that that's very evident. I look at some of the TIF money that we've been able to spend and looking at that and said, are we able to build the economical wealth of our entire city, not just downtown or concentrated areas? And those are my biggest pieces of being able to build up our whole economical wealth as a big city. Not on specific little projects sometimes, and I really want to make sure that it's something that everyone can use and utilize and access as well too.
Thank you. Bob Blake?
Yeah, this is just geographics, people. We're getting older, our communities are getting older, our healthcare is getting better, and so what we have is we have a flight from the suburbs into the cities, and in the cities where we're going to have is what we're going to have a lot more people, especially retired people, that are going to want to be able to be close to the amenities. So as we start to develop this plan for density housing, which I like the idea of, is how do we go ahead and we also include affordable housing? So those are some of the things that I really want to be able to address, and especially go ahead and really look at the fact that, attracting retirees from the suburb into the city, and having that ability to go ahead and stack residents and provide the amenities that these individuals are going to need as they get older. I say that provides a great tax base for us to be able to do other things in our city, which is provide better affordable housing for the rest of our community.
Thank you. Amy Brenmoen.
So the Hillcrest redevelopment site, the Ford redevelopment site, Sears redevelopment site, the Allianz Field redevelopment site are incredibly huge opportunities in a built-up city like St. Paul. This is an opportunity for us to build our city's tax base. I hear people asking us to keep our taxes down. The way to do that is to build a tax base. All of these projects will create tons of great paying construction jobs and then jobs in the buildings there afterwards. We have an opportunity to create affordable housing and also to use green building policies while we're creating these big development sites and opportunities to be a leader in climate innovation.
Thank you. And Jamie Hendricks.
I would say that these sites are great sites for us to be able to build some affordable housing. I also, though, would like to be able to see us use some of the buildings that we currently have that sit within our ward. There are several buildings that we have that have not been used for a long time, and I think it's time that we start repurposing some of those buildings. We've come to a place where on Rice Street we have a lot of non-used buildings, and I think that we need to take a look at those things also when we're looking at all of these plans, rather than just continuing to build new and bigger buildings within our ward.
Thank you very much. So for this next question, we will start with Bob Blake. So how would you strengthen the city's historic preservation program to ensure protection of irreplaceable, eligible, and designated historic sites?
Oh, yes, definitely. We were 1854. St. Paul was seated, and we have a lot of. And being Native American, we this is traditionally Native land, and I think that when we think about, especially the situation around Mounds Park, that we look at that and we respect those generations before us. So respecting our past is just the way that I believe that we plan for the future, and the way that we address everything that is coming towards towards us. So, yes, I'm all for preserving the St. Paul Preservation Act. That's so important. I'm also I went to St. Bernard's right down the street here. They put in a $1 million bell for that school. I spent half my life going to that church. So, I mean, that's really important to me.
Thank you. Amy Brenmoen.
Thank you. I appreciate this question, and I do feel like it's hearkening to the St. Andrew's Church question. That was a really tough issue. It was hard on neighbors, hard on school, hard on students, hard on the district council. I know there's people who are not going to vote for me because of that one specific issue, and that's a shame. And I think it's a real shame because it could have been avoided if there was a historic designation on the property before it was sold. I'm working with my colleagues to find resources to create a survey for the city to designate properties now, so that before they change hands, that designation is in place and we don't have to have these bloodbaths in our neighborhood as things are sold and changing hands. I think it's important, and I know there's support on the council to find that resource.
Thank you. Jamie Hendricks.
Historic preservation is really. Historic preservation is an important part of what we do in St. Paul, and it's an opportunity for us to be able to preserve our heritage and continue to show that this is the story of who we are in St. Paul and who we have been. When we protect buildings, landscapes, other objects that are, or artifacts that are of historical significance, we're keeping our history alive. And it's very important for us to be able to have that continue and for people to be able to learn. As far as historical buildings go, we've seen it all over the country, where people have been able to repurpose these buildings and still be able to have them there in order for us to learn about the past history. So I would like to see that, as opposed to tearing down buildings, that we are taking a look at other ways that we're able to preserve those buildings.
So absolutely. I think one of the pieces is that we do have a department in the city of St. Paul that actually does historical preservation, and we need to really listen to them, right? There's also amenities in our neighborhood that changes the whole character of our whole community too. And I think that for me, even in the district that I was working in, we actually ended up preserving some historical sites that weren't historical before and made them historic. So, I mean, it is possible to change those pieces out, and it's not impossible. And I do think that it needs to be done with a lot of consideration and a lot of kindness, though, too. So I think these are things that we need to think about in the future and to be able to really consider that we don't want to destroy our amenities. Thanks.
Brenmoen, excuse me.
Oh, there you go.
So regarding a recent increase in gun violence, some say we need more police, some say we need more programs to steer people away from violence. What's your approach? And the magic question, how do we pay for it?
Right. All right. I'm going to try this one.
Thank you.
Okay. So the recent increase in gun violence is it's unsettling, it's upsetting, and I believe that in order to address the issue, it's kind of an all-hands-on-deck situation. It's something where we need to engage our police department. We need to do policing a bit different. We need more youth and community ambassadors in our community. We need to look at restorative justice programs. We need to look at the way that our police interact with our community members. The thing I'm most excited about right now is something called group violence intervention, or maybe people have heard of cure violence. And basically, we've learned that about 0.26% of the population of a city is responsible for over 40% of homicides and gun violence. So this program really takes a close look at those 600 people and focuses on law enforcement on that. And I'm working with the police chief, John Choi, and the mayor to roll out a group violence intervention program in the city of St. Paul.
Thank you. Jamie Hendricks.
This is something that's very close to me. A few years ago, my daughter's boyfriend was shot and killed out in front of my house over a random robbery. So I have had a lot to think about as far as this goes. And I believe that one of the things that we have to do is we have to make sure that our law enforcement and that our community members have the tools that they need in order to be able to deal with these situations. We currently do not have enough police. I know that the city has talked about cutting the police, but the response times are extremely high. This last year, over 5,000 priority 2 calls went unheard of. They weren't able to go there. That's a problem. And so I think that it's very important that we take a look at this and take a look at where it is that our resources are and what resources we actually need to preserve.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda.
I think there is no shock for the idea that in the last 10 years, economically, North End is doing worse than it ever has been economically. It has dropped down to almost 30-some thousand, 32-some thousand dollars a year. Leaving people to live under 18-some thousand dollars in some areas of North End. This community is desperate. This community is falling apart. There is, of course, correlation between violence and living impoverished. And that's something that we have to really work on and actually have a plan that's in place. And I think within that, it's about the economics of this whole district and looking at our ward and to making sure that people have adequate housing. And, you know, we need more programming. We need more youth programming. And I think that's something that we need to be able to work on strategically. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Bob Blake.
Yeah, I grew up in a cop family, Minneapolis cop family, and I think that a lot of my family members will tell you that, they don't really see that cops are going to be the answer to this. What we need is we need to be able to create opportunities for the community where they're going to go ahead and get job training skills, where they're going to have after-school programs, where actually the community is going to be involved. There's no really, how can I say, the Maryland Avenue Kmart was one of the most successful Kmarts in the country for one reason, because it was in the concentration of poverty between McDonough, Mount Airy, North End, and the East Side, St. Paul. So now that store is closing. Let's put a workforce training center in there. Let's put a workforce training center in there for the future. Right across the street there is also a heavy highway building there, and what Governor Pawlenty, or what Governor Walz was trying to do was put a 20-cent gas tax to repair the worlds. Let's put a bunch of people in our neighborhoods to work, having good-paying government, union-paying jobs. That's how we fight poverty. That's how we fight violence, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll start with Jamie Hendricks. And what would be your plan for revitalizing Rice Street?
What I would like to do is I would like to encourage more small business ownership so that people don't have to travel so far out of the area in order to be able to get the goods and the services that they need. And I think the council's role in that should be to promote those small businesses, follow up to make sure that their needs are being met so that they can continue to thrive and grow their business. We must inform owners also about potential financing that is available to them. But at this current time, we have a lot that's going on. And in order for us to be able to attract small businesses into the Rice Street area, we need to take a look and get the crime and the gun violence situation under control. We had one young person that had opened up a shop on Rice Street and shortly after had left due to the fact that none of his customers were feeling safe enough to come to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What would be your plan for revitalizing Rice Street?
I think that definitely using some TIF money for us to revitalize. I'm thinking about affordable housing, not just thinking about it, but acting on it. Rebuilding some of the current apartment buildings and the conditions that our community is living in. There's got a large level of community members right now that are living within bed bugs and in situations that are not habitable for humans. We really need to think about a place that, in a space for our community to be able to a place called home, right? And what does home actually mean, too? And I think on top of that, it's rebuilding our whole space into bringing in more amenities and more spaces that we can beautify this neighborhood.
Thank you. Bob Blake.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to go ahead and being able to go ahead and present the opportunity for people to go ahead and have jobs from the Workforce Center. The communities coming together and create their own community gardens, getting to know your neighbor, okay? Because it's you people that are going to be able to alert the police. It's you people that are going to be able to make the difference in your community. And building that relationship. So, you know, and the great thing about that is when your place needs to be painted or your walkway needs to be shoveled, your neighbor's going to know you and they're going to get out there because they grew food with you all summer long. So I'm saying about let's get out of our houses and get to know each other once again. This is how we fight crime. This is how we make it safer for economic development. And then also too, when our people in our community is working, I'm sorry, but there's not a lot of time to go out there and cause mischief. So that is one way I believe that we do it.
Thank you. And Amy Brenmoen.
So North End is the one area in the city that doesn't have an official community development corporation. And that's a challenge, but so instead of hand-wringing, my ward office worked with Ward 5, the district councils, the North End Business Association, and neighbors to establish a group called the North End Development Team to work on economic development on Rice Street. And we applied for grants out of the sales tax money and out of CDBG dollars from the city and have done hundreds of thousands of dollars of facade improvements, interior improvements. If you see the Hmong Elder Center and the mural on the outside, there's a lot of exterior and interior. We do the work in many different languages and go door to door to try to connect with people in person, to tell them about the resources. And next on our list is to work with the city to make the STAR dollars and the other funds easier for people to use. I think there are ways that can be improved.
Thank you. So with this next question, we'll start with Suyapa Miranda. So we've talked about compost. Now we'll talk about trash. Do you support the trash referendum? Why or why not?
So I came from a city earlier on in part of my life that had organized trash, which was Minneapolis, right? And I believe in the idea of organized trash. I don't believe in its current policy and how it sits. We have 6,500 people that said something is wrong here today with our trash, and it's our jobs and our responsibilities to take a look at that. And for us to figure out how can we amend these policies and make them adequate for most of our constituents that are in our city. And that's something that I want to be able to bring into is the ability for our community to be able to listen when something goes wrong. And it's okay to amend things and redo them.
Thank you. Bob Blake, trash.
Oh, yes. You know, we had 6,500 people that came to the city council and expressed to them their discourse with the current system. I believe that the city council and the mayor should have listened to them. It should never have gotten to the state court in which the way it did. You know, and I'm glad it's on the ballot. So I definitely side with the people on that, and I look forward to seeing the outcome of that November 5th.
So I think the question was,
do you support the trash referendum? Why or why not?
Okay, so I'm going to be voting yes to preserve our current trash system, and it doesn't mean I don't think it's that I think it's perfect. I think it's imperfect and can use improvements. But I also don't think that a city of 313,000 should have individually negotiated trash contracts. And in fact, when we converted from an individual system to an organized system, 10,000 people came online to the system. We had folks burning their trash, putting their trash in business garbage cans, putting their trash in city garbage cans. I think that it would be great to have a shared option. I think it would be great to have an opt-out option. And I would like to continue to bring rates down. But those are things that we can do with the existing contracts and once we're through the referendum. then we're in a good spot to come down with the haulers and leave those trees.
I will be voting no on the trash referendum, and these are the reasons why. They're the same reasons as when I had went in front of the city council and talked about how I felt about the idea of the organized system. We have people who were able to share with others before. We have people who are zero wasters who are paying for trash cans that they don't need. This past year, I had 5 times that my trash was not picked up, and this system has not worked well. You're on the phone with one company, and then you're told to go somewhere else, and it's taking forever just to get anywhere, besides the fact that I am paying 2 times what I was before. I believe that there was 6,500 people, including myself, that had signed the petition, and with the city charter, we were still denied the fact of having this put on the referendum. A lot of money's been spent on, a lot of our money has been spent on the lawsuit, and I think it's time that the people have the opportunity to make their voice be heard.
Thank you. So I'm going to start this next question with Suyapa Miranda, but we're going to go the other way, all right? And I think we're about half done, so we're going to just have one question that changes the tone just a little bit. And I'd like you to tell me, what is your favorite thing about living in Ward 5?
My favorite thing living in Ward 5. For me, it's the amenities. I mean, for our family, it's the amenities. It's the ability for us to be able to, walk, feet away from a bus stop and being able to utilize the transportation that's around us. To be able to walk your dog, to be able to be in some spaces, to be able to have some walkability in those spaces. So I think those are the things that have been good. And I want to promote that and see that for everybody in our community too.
My favorite thing about Ward 5 is the tenacity of the people. And everyone has different ideas about things, but we know that we can find common ground and that we can work from there. I love to be able to get outside and talk to my neighbors. I love to be able to talk to the people that live throughout my neighborhood. And we've made a lot of connections. I've lived there for 22 years, so I know a lot of people. And I believe that although we have some differences and that we see things in a different light, that we can come together and be able to work on a lot of the issues that we need to in a very productive manner.
Hey, Amy Brandmoen, your favorite thing about living in Ward 5?
So my favorite thing about living in Ward 5 is probably the diversity. We live in the most diverse ward in the entire city, which means we have access to lots of cultures, lots of different groceries, lots of different restaurants. And we, my campaign team and I have been out canvassing in Ward 5 since probably March of this year. I'm knocking on doors and talking to people, and every time a door opens, there's a new story, a new experience. We will run into people who are butchering a pig in their garage. We'll run into people who are heading to a celebration, and they'll take a minute to tell us about the celebration. We'll communicate with people who don't speak English and figure out a way to connect, and I think it's a very rich part of our community, and I'm proud to serve in it, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Yeah, just the history of growing up here in Ward 5 and here in St. Paul. I mean, this room right here was where I came for my first information meeting for the St. Paul Fire Department. And across the street was where I grew up playing baseball. Down the street here is where I went to grade school and junior high. First communion, first confession. Como Lake, location. I love Como Lake. I grew up running that lake every night before I went to bed in high school. I just love this. I love this town. I love St. Paul, and I definitely love this area. So just every time I drive around here, I get to see old friends. old people, you're related to so-and-so, you're related to so-and-so, and it just warms my heart whenever I come across someone that knows someone that knew my brother or knew my cousin or knew one of my family members, and it's just, I love this community. That's why I'm running for city council.
And we'll start with Jamie Hendricks. And it's very long, so I'm going to kind of shorten it a little bit, I hope. Whenever you make a decision about anything, there's going to be people who like it and people who don't like it. And so how are you going to deal with that conflict and come to a decision for yourself? So again, starting with Jamie Hendricks.
I think it's really important that you are someone that doesn't just hear people, but that you listen and that you make room for space for people to be able to come together and be able to bring their perspectives. One of the biggest things is I think you have to realize and understand that your perspective is not the only perspective. And so in that, it's so important that you're listening to both sides or all three sides or all four sides or whatever it is, and be able to come back and make decisions that make sense. But you also have to be able to come back to the community and say, here's why I made this decision. And I want people to know that, I'm trying to have their best interest in mind. That's that transparency part. And we don't see that right now, and I think that it's something that's lacking.
And Moen.
I appreciate that question. I'm very interested in actually the bigger answer to that question. I feel like as a society, we've gotten to be pretty poor at civil discourse and civil disagreement. And I would really look for an opportunity to be able to engage with people and talk and to hear each other's perspectives and to be able to walk away from things with an understanding, maybe not an agreement. So many times we hear I wasn't heard when the decision didn't go someone's way. And I do think that there's a potential to be heard and listened to and also have a decision not go the way that you wanted it to. It's important that we open up that dialogue and feel like we can have it in a safe way. And it's more of a challenge all the time with social media and with our federal leaders. And I think that it's something that we're going to have to be very intentional about.
Blake.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate this question. Being the outsider all the time taught me a lot about how to build bridges and bring people together. Consequently, I got walked on a lot for doing that. But, more times than none, I found out that we had more in common than we had apart. And I think anybody that would know me would tell you that Bob Lake was a great guy and he would bring us together. And whatever problems we did have, we were able to solve them. And so, I think there's a lot that I was able to do because of the way that I look and the way that I grew up, and I was being the outsider. So that taught me a lot of how to deal with people. And I think the biggest thing that I would say is that we definitely have more in common than we have apart. And there's always an answer. There's always a way to get through a problem. So I look forward to bringing people together.
Miranda.
Could you repeat the question? I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
How do you reach a consensus when there's a disagreement?
That's funny. So I used to work I was an executive director for a community council, so we had stuff like this that happened a lot. And my job and my responsibility was to get ahead of it as best as I could. As soon as I heard that there could be a potential conflict on something, we had a meeting immediately. And on that, we were able to do survey and analysis and start to get people's opinions, not by the loudest person in the room today, but by everybody in those neighborhoods, especially those who are being affected in those areas, and getting translators out into making sure what exactly is the single problem that we're having. A lot of the issues broke down to communication, and we were able to put a plan together and able to address those plans within that time and space.
Thank you. So this question we'll start with Amy Brenmoen. So in any city, we've got pedestrians, we've got cars, we've got buses, we've got bicycles, and we need to have a street design that gives access to businesses so that businesses stay healthy. How do you see melding all of those important issues?
I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but I believe that
So basically, it's about street design.
it's about street design. Okay, well, the city is moving towards a complete street model when it rebuilds streets, and that's really putting people at the center of planning, whether it's people who are walking, people who are in a wheelchair, people who are riding a bicycle, people who are taking a bus, people who are driving. But we're moving away from a system that really just benefits moving cars as fast as possible through communities, and instead making communities livable and walkable and breathable. And these things include road diets, and they include bump outs, and they also include encouraging fast-moving traffic to go on the highway. And so it's about bigger picture planning, and also about, again, just putting people in the center of planning for roads instead of letting cars be the king.
Thank you. So Bob Blake, street design for people and cars and bicycles.
Yeah, definitely. People first, communication, cooperation, collaboration. I mean, that's got to be at the center of every decision that we make, where we're going to go ahead and bring people together. And that's exactly what I would do and what I would vote for. And that's, allowing for us to be able to, like Councilmember Brandon said, with roundabouts, getting people out of the vehicles. I'm sorry, people, but we got to get out of our vehicles. We got to get out of our comfort zone. We got to get to meet our neighbor. We need more we need better public transit. Obviously, the Green Line project that went through St. Paul, that was a great feat that we accomplished as a city. I believe that we could do more of that, and we have to do more of that.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda.
So as much as I'd love that, for us to be able to just say, let's stop driving our cars and let's make sure that we're back in our houses, we have the issue with vehicles. A lot of the road diets have also created extreme levels of congestion and idling in our neighborhoods too. How are we able to create a space where our cars are still able to mobilize while we still have them, which is a lot of them? Our metro system is not designed in a way that is efficient. And that's so unfortunate right now, because that's exactly what we need. So many times in the neighborhood that I live in, my mom will be waiting within an hour for a bus to show up, and in the rain or in the snow. A lot of places don't even have bus shelters. We really need to make sure that we're thinking about our whole entire group when we're thinking of that, of not having the luxury of not driving a vehicle that is not a luxury for us.
Thank you. And Jamie Hendricks.
So one of the things, I know people talk about it all the time, let's get out of our cars, let's get out of our cars. That's great if you don't live 20 miles away from your job. We're always going to have cars. People continue to need vehicles in order to be able to get places, to be able to get their families places. The one thing that I'm concerned about right now, and I've looked at this a few different times, is the road diet that's happening right now on Larpenteur Avenue, where cars are being backed up all the way up to Dale Street. So I have to wonder, how much of those emissions are sitting in those same places where there are apartment buildings and where there are homes? We have to make sure that when we're making these decisions, that we're taking a look at what that means in the whole picture as far as our climate goes also.
Thank you. So with this question, we'll start with Bob Blake. So what is your experience working with budgets, and how will you set budget priorities if elected?
Small business owner, I've got a payroll. I've got people that I got to pay. They've got kids, they've got families. I got to think about my projects for next year. And then I got to think about exactly what happens with off-season work too. So, budgets are not very fun. I'm not the I'm not the greatest math program person, but there's a lot of there's a lot of help out there now with what I do with ADP in my payroll system. So as I look at the budget for the city of St. Paul, I mean I think there's different things that we can do. And especially around with the public safety part. I really like to take a look at it, see especially how the police department and exactly what squads are riding able and what squads are two-man squads. So try to figure out how we can better address that and look at those kind of positions.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda, your experience with budgets and how you will set budget priorities.
Sure. So I've served for over 13 years on several different boards and nonprofits and organizations. I've also served on the TRAB for the Transportation Board and Met Council. I know how a budget works. And we also know how to be able to know what the projected monies are and where we need to find money and how do we need to get it. I think looking at the City of St. Paul's budget right now, we need to be really strategic and real proactive of how we apply for grants. And having a grant manager within the City of St. Paul would be something as a recommendation that I see right off the bat.
Thank you. Jamie Hendricks.
And so mine isn't as big as everybody else's, but when I was working in education, I ran a program where I had to coordinate with 10 different school districts in order to be able to get kids downtown to the Science Museum to do some STEM work and some integration work. And so during that time, I was in charge of making sure that the budget, the very small budget that I had, was able to reach the most kids possible. So I had done that, but I think about the budget downtown, and I think about it just like my household budget at home. We need to take a look and see what are the needs, what are the wants, what can we actually afford to do, and make sure that we aren't wasting any kind of money.
Thank you. And Amy Brentmoen.
Well, before I took this job, I would not have been able to say this, but I do have experience with the city budget. As council president, I chair the city's budget committee, and we slice and dice and mulch the $600 million city budget, and I love it. It's my favorite part of my job. One of the things that we've done since I became council president is tried to create opportunities for input before the budget is established so that community members and departments can help us set priorities in advance of the mayor's budget proposal. And then this year, for the first time, we held a public forum after the budget was proposed to get the community's input and reactions to that budget so that early on, before the budget is finalized, we got that community input. I think this year the budget will be very interesting. We don't set it until December 12th, which is end of fourth quarter, and we've got a lot of work still in front of us, and I look forward to every minute of it.
Thank you. So we'll start this question with Suyapa Miranda. You can only do so much in so much time. So in the next 5 years, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Collaborations, working with our local nonprofits, working together to seeing how we're able to, I feel we're extremely fragmented as a city and as a community right now. How do we start to patch that up? Working with our small businesses and starting to get coalitions together is extremely important. And I should know, I've worked in a small nonprofit, and this is exactly how we did the work. We had a little bit of capacity, but we pushed as hard as we could by getting out to our partners and asking our volunteers and getting the best helps and experts to make sure that we're doing the right job.
Thank you. Jamie Hendricks, top 3 priorities.
So my number 1 priority is public safety. If we do not have neighborhoods that are safe, then we don't have the room to be able to thrive and grow. I'm also, another priority would be taking a look at the budget, digging into the budget, figuring out where our money is going. We need to be sure that we are being fiscally responsible. Housing, sustainable housing, which if anybody wants to talk about that later, I can talk to you about that. That's a little different than affordable housing, but that is one of my other priorities. And then my last priority, top kind of priority, is to be able to see equity in our education system.
Thank you. Amy Brentmoen.
I mentioned earlier the group violence intervention program, and it's something that I'm incredibly interested in and very focused on working on in a 3rd term in office. I really believe that if we can focus those resources in the police department on that group, that we will see the kind of changes that we've seen in this program nationwide. I'm interested in continuing to push our city's housing priorities, including productions, tenant and landlord protections, and also preservation of affordable housing, and including and continuing to build our tax base. From a very specific project perspective, I'm very excited about the prospect of a North End Community Center, which is in the works right now. We got to see sort of a schematic here this morning, and it will be rolling out to the community for input in the months ahead. It will be a deal changer in our community.
Thank you. And Bob Blake.
Yeah, community centers, after-school programs, a workforce development center, like I said, down by Maryland Avenue, Cameron. I think that this is what I would like to see. Also, being able to go ahead and take care of our first responders, whether that's through meditation techniques or whether that's through some type of wellness program. But I believe that taking care of our first responders is going to be better. When they're taken care of, they're going to be able to be better taking care of us, the city. I lost my brother to the effects of the stress of the job, and I don't want to see another family go through that. The other part of this is, obviously, like I said, is we need to bring the community together. And I think it's a very cheap and I think it's a very economical way to just start planting gardens. Let's bring the kids out. Let's bring the families out. Let's start looking out for each other. The nice thing about when we create these community gardens is that they act as air conditioners for the city when it gets really hot. We're going to have hotter summers coming because of climate change. So that's what I would like to see in the next 5 years.
Thank you. Well, this question will start with Jamie Hendricks. How do we counter the negative impact that neighborhood social media pages have on public discussion and neighborhood unity?
Well, to speak on things positively, but different neighborhoods will have different pages, and it's up to the people that are the admins on those pages to be able to do that. So it's one of those things that you don't necessarily have control of. If you choose to, you can start your own neighborhood page, and at that point then you can be able to control what happens as far as the social media part of it goes and bring more positive into those conversations.
Thank you. Amy Brenmoen.
Boy, I wish there was an easy answer to that question. I know, I can't remember the name of the study, but I know that in California there was research into a community that had a strong social media group and shared information about crime. And the group was so, active, stop?
What? She just started.
It's like, woo! Okay. But the community believed that crime was going up and out of control in their community when in fact the numbers were going down. And no matter how you talked about it, people believed that it was just out of control. I do think it's incumbent on all of us to speak up, to speak the truth, to be positive, and also it's no need, I don't mean to candy coat things, but there is an echo effect and a kind of a reverberation that can lead people to believe that things are more negative than they actually are.
Thank you. Bob Blake.
Well, I just joined Facebook because of this campaign. So I've been a holdout. I've been one out of the million people that wasn't on Facebook. But I've always believed that the type of negativity that permeates from that type of medium is I don't know if it's very productive. But as I've read some of the other things that I've on there, that I've kind of changed my tune a little bit, in that there is a lot of positive things that are happening out here in our community. And and I just believe that whether it's through social media, whether it's through just going out and taking action, or whether it's through or whether it's just saying something to someone in a kind voice. Let's do everything I think and we can in our power to go ahead and not perpetrate any negativity from whether we get from social media, but let's present a positive out here to our fellow neighbor. And so that's what I would say to that.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda.
So I do like it for the fact that we're able to do more of a neighborhood watch when things happen to us, that we're able to kind of lay out, look, this is what's happening. Unfortunate, we've used it for shootings, and, oh, this is what's happening on this neighborhood. There's this other piece that also says to me that I also want to see us getting off of our phones and out of our laptops and out of that space for us to be able to host community meals and to be able to face each other and have conversations and able to build relationships, because that's what's really needed here. And I think some other of our folks it's really easy for people to say things online and walk away without any levels of consequences or understanding what they're talking about. And having those community meals is something that we need to be able to build our community up with.
Thank you. With this question, we'll start with Amy Brenmoen. So what do you think is the city's responsibility to enable people who lack education and English literacy to achieve economic stability?
Did you say the first part again?
Yeah. What do you think is the city's responsibility to enable people who lack education and English literacy to achieve economic stability?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I don't know an answer off the top of my head to that. I do believe that when people have access to resources, they will thrive. And so any place where the city can step in and create those bridge for folks is an important place for us to be involved. I'm not sure if this is a question that's specifically towards kids or if it's towards adults who are English language learners, but opportunities at our public libraries, opportunities at our rec centers, opportunities to engage in government, I think are all important ways to get people to feel like they're part and enfranchised with the city and feel invested in the place that they live.
Thank you. Bob Blake.
Yeah, boy, Sister Janelle at St. Bernard's, Dennis Donovan, Katie McWatt, she's got a street named after her now. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have those people in my life. In my high school picture, there's a picture of me and two of my friends. The guy on the right of me killed 2 people in a robbery on East 7th Street. The guy that left of me died selling drugs. And here's me with three college degrees, and I own my own business. I thank this city. I thank all the people that were my coaches. I thank all the people that I got to play sports with. I thank all the people that Mrs. Niedermeyer down the street here who just treated me like a son. It's community. I'm getting choked up here talking about it because I love all these people. And I know that we still have it here in the city. And I know that we still have it here in St. Paul. I'm on boards here in St. Paul. I'm on extracurricular activities, and I know that we still have the spirit of that. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes. What do you think is the city's responsibility to enable people who lack education and English literacy to achieve economic stability?
So that means us translating things into the languages that it's necessary for our community to be able to understand. I think some things that, even for myself, even doing some door knocking, is to understand that not everybody has the ability to read. So how are we being innovative in order for us to be able to communicate that, right? And it doesn't always have to be through words. Maybe it's through art. Maybe it's a different way of how we communicate some of our biggest values and our visions for our community, and having those conversations on that one-on-one. So I think these are things that are important for us to be able to cross over those barriers. On top of language is how we approach things and how we talk to each other, and communication, even the nonverbals of how we talk to our neighbors too.
Thank you. And Jamie Hendricks.
I also believe that we need to be able to have things in translation, but I think we also need to be able to support our schools and our school systems and our ESL teachers in order to be able to bring kids into that fold. And how that can happen is we can go in, we can do observations, we can help try and find ways for everybody to be able to work together on that. As far as adults go, we do have a hub center here on University Avenue that does a lot of that work, and I think that it's very important that we make sure that people know and understand that that's available to them.
Thank you. And with this question, we'll start with Bob Blake. This question is kind of, what about me? So they said they hear a lot of talk about Como and the North End, and they are wondering, what about the ward east of Highway 35E?
Okay, so.
What opportunities or assets for that area?
Oh, okay, so, yeah, 35E. Boy, I drive that a lot. I go out that way a lot. You know, is this, I'm sorry, in your question, is it just like, what is the access points, or?
No, it says, we hear a lot about Como and the North End when we talk about Ward 5, but can you tell us about any opportunities or assets from the ward east of 35E? So,
Oh, okay, yes.
portion of Ward 5.
Yes,
that's east.
definitely. So the apartments there in Westminster, that's where I grew up as a kid. There's a great park there. I spent summers just playing ball there. If you go down to by where the American Indian Family Center is, there across the street, there's another park there, Wilder Park there. I mean, and these people that are at these park systems, I mean, they're great people. They're great resources for the community. There's a great new library right there on Payne Avenue right there. I mean, there's so many wonderful resources that are right over in that direction. That I don't think that, I think maybe that the community isn't there really tapping. And that's why I say, like, having like a workforce center right there down at Maryland Avenue, Kmart, right down the street from the east side of St. Paul there, where I know there's a high concentration of poverty there. I think that's one of the best places to do this. So there's a lot of great resources over there, because I grew up over there.
Thank you, Suyapa Miranda.
Repeat the question one more time.
Yeah, so basically, they want to know what opportunities and assets there are in the Ward 5 east of Highway 35E.
I have to say this, I've done a lot of door knocking in the east side, and you know what's the first questions that a lot of people tell me? They said, why are you doing that? That's so weird, because that has nothing to do with our ward. And I said, oh my gosh, we have a lot of work to do. We go all the way to Edgerton, and I've been doing the door knocking and going over there and saying, yes, you are a part of our ward. And I think that's been forgotten sometimes in a lot of the things that we've worked on. There's plenty of things. There's beautiful businesses over there. There's some really great places to eat that I'd never even knew they existed. And getting to know our neighbors on the other end of the freeway has been something that's been a great and immense experience. And getting to know that they are a part of our community and they haven't been forgotten.
Thank you, Jamie Hendricks.
So I've done a lot of door knocking over there too. And the thing that I found to be really, really sad and disappointing was the fact that a lot of people thought that they were not a part of this ward. Many people didn't even know what a ward was or how that works or any of those kind of things, or even who represents them. And that's a problem. We need to be able to come together, whether we are divided by roads or lakes or any of that kind of thing. We need to come together as a community and embrace the richness that we have. And I believe that there's a lot of opportunity over in that area. We have a great dog park that's over there that a lot of people don't know about. We have some tennis courts and some ball fields that are over there. And I think that what we need to do is we need to do some real outreach over there to the people in that area and let them know we're here, you're part of this ward, and we want to make sure that your voice is being heard.
Thank you. And Amy Brandmoen.
So the east side portion of Ward 5 is a third of the ward. In my first term, we worked, I see Kim O'Brien's here, we worked really hard with Don Lohr and the Railroad Island Task Force on the Bully Bluff housing development and changes and improvements at the Tedesco and Lafayette interchange and 7th and Payne Avenue, and those improvements are incredible, including the overlook. We also added the Arlington Hills Rec Center, which is a huge amenity to the community, not only as a rec center, but as a community gathering place. We have a brand-new play center at Wilder Rec. We increased the rec hours there. I see opportunities for traffic calming on Arkwright, on Westminster, on Edgerton. I agree with Ms. Hendricks. There's a great dog park over there that probably could use some sidewalks so you can walk your dog to it, and other improvements, as well as some playground equipment for little kids at the Arkwright Arlington ball fields, where I feel like it's kind of oriented towards older kids, and we could use a swing set or a slide or some things that are more oriented towards little kids.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is the last question before we do closing statements, and I'm just going to mix it all up and just pick everybody at random. And so we'll start with Jamie Hendricks. Who is your role model as a leader, and how would you apply their principles to your role serving the city?
So, my role model, and this person was a leader and wasn't in other capacities, but it was my mom. And she raised 4 kids on her own. We lived in poverty, but we really didn't necessarily know that. She had lived a very, very tough life, but yet in that entire time, she was someone who was able to be very kind to other people, listen to other people, and take other people's children in and other people in. And that kindness, I think, is something that that I brought, or that I've picked up. Yes, I can be bold. Yes, I can be tough on things. But to be able to actually think about the fact that we are all human beings and that we all have feelings and that we all have needs is really important to me. So
Thank you.
She was my role model.
Thank you. Bob Blake.
Oh boy, yeah, Mom. 38 years with the Department of the Interior, Bureau of Indian Affairs. She, when she retired from the Department of the Interior, from the BIA, Stanley Crooks out in Mystic Lake had a big dinner for her and said, when we had nothing, Charlie gave us everything, and now we have everything. We want to give you something. And so that I just remember that 22 years she retired from the United States Army. She's a Gulf War vet. So when the kids down at St. Bernard's used to tease me and say during football practice, your mom wears Army boots, I'd say, yeah, how did you know? So love my mom. She raised three boys that. I don't think that when my father passed away, he could have ever imagined that our lives turned out the way they did. My mom is just an incredible human being, incredible person, and our first apartment was right across the street, right over here.
Thank you. Suyapa Miranda.
So I'm not going to say my mom, and I do love her to death. I really do. I love her a lot. I think when it's, every so often there's so many sheroes in our lives, there's so many sheroes in our community, there's so many people that I love and admire. But I think in my quiet time, Toni Morrison, I love her books. I think there's about resilience and a lot of pieces of this that just make me think about what is possible, and really having a lot of inspiration, admiration for her, like as a writer. I think those have been some of the most amazing books that I've ever written, ever read, and it's been great.
And Amy Brandmiller.
I am going to say my mom. She is incredible. She was a teenage mom and a single parent who put herself through college. My sister and I lived with her in a housing project in Minneapolis, so I know what it's like to be really, really poor and really, really have some pretty lean Christmases. But she read to us every night. She pushed us to ask why and to challenge the status quo. She taught us to believe in women and to stand by them, and to also to meet people where they're at and really try to get to understand where they're coming from. She's a hard worker, she's humble, she's a team player, and she's loyal and reliable. And when I told her I was running for city council the first time, she's like, why? And I explained to her why, and she's been my biggest supporter and fan in this journey, and she is my hero.
Thank you. So we're now ready for closing statements, and remember you have 2 minutes, and we will start in opposite order from the opening statements. And so we'll start with Suyapa Miranda.
So in my closing statements, it's really about looking at the vision of our ward and where do we see ourselves in the next 4 to 5 years. And I'm talking about innovation, us thinking outside of the box. us really pushing ourselves to those limits and really talking about strong levels of leadership, to really to think outside those boxes, to be able to work and do the work that's needed. And there's so much to be done. And I also want to be able to think about how do we put metrics to making sure that we're doing the right job and that we're meeting the marks every single year to go where we need to be able to go. And if we're not, we need to be able to hold ourselves accountable for every one of those pieces too. So,
Thank you. Closing statement from Jamie Hendricks.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that everybody is here tonight. This is great to see this much of a crowd. I'm hoping that you will join me in the next 4 years. My vision for all of us is that we're able to come together, that we're able to be able to work on things together, and that the transparency, that you feel the transparency there, and that you feel that you have a voice. It's very important to me that everyone has a voice. This summer I did 14 meet and greets in people's backyards, and that was some of the best conversations that I had. It was very comfortable for people. It was an opportunity for them to really ask a lot of questions to me, a lot of tough questions, and just to be able to build that community. So I'm very excited about this. I've been working on this since February, and I'm hoping that you will join me on November 5th and vote number 1, Jamie Hendricks.
And Amy Brenmoen.
I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters and the district councils for planning and promoting this event. I know these events take a lot of work, and I do appreciate that very much. I want to thank the community members for coming out and being part of this conversation, for your thoughtful questions, and for engaging on a rainy night when you could be at the Trump rally. I have taken about 250 miles worth of lake laps with constituents over the past 7 years. I've answered tons of phone calls and emails, knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, and I love every conversation that I've had, and I look forward to continuing that with you in the years to come. As I mentioned in my opening, I love this city. It's an incredible time to be part of leadership here. It's an incredible time to be part of community. We have challenges. I'm in a great position to continue tackling them in partnership with you. I would be honored to have your support in my reelection.
Thank you. And closing statement from Bob Blake.
Yeah, I want to first of all thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight. That was really great of you. Thank you so much and having me. When I look at the fact that when I see like all the opportunities that the climate crisis is going to bring us, and all the problems, I really do see opportunities. And me as a small business owner, I have more work than I can handle. So I really do want to like prepare our community for what's going to be happening and for all the opportunities that are going to be coming down the road. And so I'm very bullish on that job training center. And I really do believe that that's how we fight crime and that's how we bring community together. Because when people have purpose, when they're doing something that they feel very good about, and they feel strongly about, it just feels like all the other things sort of like melt away, And so that's really what I'm trying to do here, is just bring attention and awareness to that we have this problem, but there are incredible opportunities for us to go ahead and really come together and really capitalize on this. When I hear about over the next 10 years, we're going to have 30,000 people come here, I'm telling you people, I just strongly disagree with that. I think we're going to have more than that. I think we're going to have upwards of 90. And so, when we think about what that's going to be causing from people coming from the West Coast, people coming from the East Coast, right here to St. Paul, because why? We have a great economy. We have a great community here. People want to live here. They want to start families here. We really need to prepare ourselves for this influx of new people and new residents. And so I really do see this as an opportunity. I don't see this as a bad thing. And the other thing is, if I could just say something about my grandma, who in 1960 started the St. Paul American Indian Club, and she was the advocate for the Native community and worked with a lot of the communities of color here in the Twin Cities. and for her to have her grandson running for city council. We've never had a Native American city council person here in the St. Paul, so, you know, I would be the first, and I think that would be really cool too. So St. Paul, we can do better, we ought to do better, we should do better. Thank you, and I ask for your support on November 5th.
Thank you. I would like to thank the candidates and our live audience here tonight. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I would like to acknowledge and thank the candidates who are serving their community by their willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. I would also like to thank the audience here at the Candidate Forum and those of you who are watching later on when you watch it on the St. Paul Neighborhood Network. And it's important to watch the candidates discuss issues that are important to you and your community. Every vote does count, as we have found out. So this year, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., so make sure you take a friend and a neighbor and go vote. Before I sign us off, there's apparently a representative from FairVote who would like to say a word.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mai, and I am a community organizer from FairVote, Minnesota. FairVote, Minnesota is a nonpartisan, nonprofit grassroots organization, and their mission is to reform the electoral system. And their method that we advocate for is ranked choice voting. So, as you may know, this city council race is a ranked choice voting one. That means you get to rank all of these candidates in the order that you like them the best. If your first choice doesn't have enough votes to go on, your vote will transfer to your second choice, and your second or third choice never harms your first. And ranking the same candidate multiple times does not help them. So it always maximizes your voice and power to rank your ballot. So today, after listening to all of these candidates who spoke about what they're here for, why they're running for office, and what their values are, and what they want to fight for, listen not only for who your favorite may be, but how you might like to rank them. And if you have any more questions, you can feel free to come and ask me at the rank your vote table. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, please remember to take a friend and neighbor and vote on Tuesday, November 5th. Thank you and good night.